Good morning, dear students. Today we have come here to discuss a new topic related to genetic engineering, or what we call it as a rDNA technology, that is recombinant DNA technology, and the title is Role of Vectors in rDNA technology. Now, when we say the word vectors, okay, I will take the topic in detail at a later stage. First of all, I would like to introduce to you Madam Kiran Trivedi from R.G. Shah Science College.
Good morning.
And she has been in a field of microbiology for the last 30 years. She is an excellent orator, a teacher, and you will yourself realize this from the way in which she delivers this topic. I am Rakesh Patel from R.G. Shah Science College, and I hope all of you know me because I have come a lot frequently on this topic. Now let us start with the topic, that is the role of vectors in rDNA technology. Basically, what is the meaning of the word vector? In the field of microbiology, specifically when we are learning about clinical microbiology, the word vector means a carrier of a disease. A very simple example that I would like to give you is that of a mosquito. બધા જાણો છો કે મોસ્કીટો જે મલેરિયા ફેલાવે છે, બેઝિકલી મલેરિયાનો કોઝેટિવ એજન્ટ જે છે એ પ્લાઝ્મોડિયમ છે. પણ એ પ્લાઝ્મોડિયમ એક હોસ્ટ તરફથી બીજા હોસ્ટ તરફ કેવી રીતે જાય છે? જે ફોર એક્ઝામ્પલ એક બીમાર હોસ્ટ હોય, બીમાર માણસ હોય, ત્યાંથી એ સ્વસ્થ માણસને ત્યાં આગળ કેવી રીતે પહોંચાડે છે? પ્લાઝ્મોડિયમ પોતે ટ્રાન્સમિટ એની જાતે નથી થઈ શકતો. એકચ્યુઅલી એને લઈ જનાર કેરિયર મોલિક્યુલ કેરિયર ઓર્ગેનિઝમ, જેને આપણે વેક્ટર કહીએ છીએ, એ છે મોસ્કીટો. આવી જ રીતે ઘણા બધા વેક્ટર્સ હોય છે. રિસન્ટ એક્ઝામ્પલ તમને આપું તો આજે અમદાવાદની બાજુમાં સાણંદ પાસે જે ગામ છે તેમાં ક્રિમિયન વાયરસ, જે ક્રિમિયન હિમોરેજિક ફીવર ફેલાવે છે, એ ટીકથી થાય છે. છાપામાં બધાએ વાંચ્યું હશે. બેઝિકલી એ વાયરસ જે છે એ કોઝેટિવ એજન્ટ છે, અને એ વાયરસ એનિમલ્સમાંથી હ્યુમનમાં કેવી રીતે પહોંચે છે? તો એના માટે છે કેરિયરમાં, અને કેરિયર છે ટીક. સો ઇન medical microbiology, the carrier is basically called as a vector. Now, with this brief introduction of a carrier or a vector, let us come to a molecular biology. In mole biology, the carrier word or the vector is basically used for a molecule which is responsible for carrying a small fragment of DNA from one host to the other. When we say a host, means a small piece of DNA, that is the target DNA in which we are interested, that is being joined with the vector molecule, and that vector molecule is later on inserted into the host molecule in which it expresses itself. So functions is the same, that is to carry a DNA piece from the target cell to the host cell, and it is a vector which is responsible for carrying and expressing this DNA molecule into the host cell. તો હવે મિત્રો તમે સમજી ગયા હશો કે વેક્ટર બેઝિકલી મોલિક્યુલર બાયોલોજીમાં કોને કહેવાય છે. આનું ડિટેલિંગ જેમ જેમ લેક્ચર થશે તેમ તમને વધારે સમજાવશે કે કેટલા જુદા જુદા પ્રકારના વેક્ટર્સ હોય છે. અને આજે જેનેટિક એન્જિનિયરિંગ કે ક્લોનિંગ અથવા તો આ ડીએનએ ટેકનોલોજી બેઝિકલી શું છે એ તમને બહુ બ્રીફની અંદર કિરણ મેડમ તમને સમજાવશે. થેન્ક યુ વેરી મચ મેડમ.
થેન્ક યુ રાકેશ સર. માય ડિયર સ્ટુડન્ટ્સ, સરે તમને એટલું સુંદર બ્રીફ ઇન્ટ્રોડક્શન આપ્યું છે અબાઉટ ધ ટોપિક, બટ હું થોડુંક ડિટેલિંગમાં કહીશ તમને આ બધી વસ્તુઓ. લેટ અસ ફર્સ્ટ બિગિન વિથ ધ what is genetic engineering. We all are aware at this juncture that genetic engineering is basically a very hot topic. Why do we consider and why are we so fascinated by this genetic engineering? Actually, before we go into the detail of this genetic engineering, it is important for us to know that what is genetic engineering. Actually, genetic engineering is also called as recombinant DNA technology. And basically, it means the alteration of the genes in a living organism. Naturally, when we alter the gene in a living organism, the organism gets a new type of genotype. Hence, this kind of organism is called as genetically modified organism. Naturally, you will realize that why we are so much interested in GMO or genetically modified organism. Actually, whenever we modify any organism genetically, it is very much possible to alter the genetic material of a cell so that it is capable of performing all desired type of functions, including the production of some entirely different type of a compound. So naturally, now we can say that genetic engineering is a technology which involves the alteration of the character of an organism, basically by insertion of a gene from another organism into the host DNA. This kind of altered DNA is also known as recombinant DNA, and this is usually produced by gene cloning. So let us now try to understand that what happens once the organism is genetically modified. Actually, the results of genetic engineering are that there could be insertion of a foreign gene from one species into the another species, therefore forming a transgenic organism. Secondly, there could be alteration in the existing gene so that the product which is produced is changed. Third change that we can see is the change in the gene expression, so that the gene is completely translated or it is not translated at all as it is needed or required. Next, we would like to see that how the gene cloning is done. In front of you, we are having an outline of gene cloning procedure. This is just an outline, but in the next picture, you will try to understand, diagrammatically that how the gene cloning is done, and that will be a very beautiful picturization of gene cloning. But before that, let us try to see the important steps which are being involved in the gene cloning procedure. It begins with the isolation of a targeted gene from the DNA of an organism. The second is that there is an insertion of this targeted gene into the vector. Vector may be a plasmid, may be a cosmid, may be a bacteriophage. That we will discuss later on. Then third and very important thing is that there is a transformation of that inserted gene into the vector. Next is that we try to screen out the recombinants and we select those transformed cells. And finally, the expression of the clone genes through controlled elements. These are the basic outlines about the gene cloning procedure. Now we will see this diagrammatic presentation of gene cloning. Here you can very clearly see a bacterial cell. Bacterial cell with a plasmid. Plasmid is isolated from the bacterial cell, and this plasmid, as we had already seen, it will be a vector. So in this plasmid, we try to insert a targeted gene. This targeted gene is basically taken from the chromosome of a different kind of a cell. this targeted gene is inserted into the plasmid. Naturally, this plasmid is now having a new genetic makeup, so it is called as recombinant plasmid. This recombinant plasmid is then inserted into the host cell. So now the host cell is having a plasmid with a different type of genetic makeup. So this host cell is also named as recombinant bacterium. Now from this recombinant bacterium, we permit the multiplication of this recombinant bacterium. As a result of that, we get a large number of recombinant bacteria, each one of which is having a plasmid with a different genetic makeup. Now each plasmid is having a targeted gene. That means, in short, we can say that we have increased the number of copies of the genes in the plasmid by using the plasmid as a vector. Now you will question that why we want to increase the number of this kind of targeted gene copies. Naturally, we may get a targeted gene, more number of targeted gene, because there are several applications of these genetic engineering. The first one, as you can see, there are some plants. We can insert a gene which will provide the resistance to the plant against a variety of diseases. Secondly, we can use the gene to remove the toxic waste material. Thirdly, we can use this desired or inserted targeted gene to produce the proteins. These proteins may be used for therapeutic uses, or this gene may be used to produce some hormones. The hormones may be the growth hormones, or the genes can be utilized to produce some compound, very important compounds like insulin. So this is in brief about the application of gene cloning or application of genetic engineering technology. So this is a very beautiful picture giving you the complete explanation about the gene cloning. Now, as earlier discussed, what are the vectors? So again you will know that vectors basically they function as the carrier of the DNA to allow the replication of the recombinant DNAs. When we talk about the vectors so much, we should know that what type of characters should be there in a vector. The vector should possess, number one, autonomous mode of replication. That means it should be the very independent in replication without the help of bacterial chromosome. Secondly, it should be very easy to isolate. That means it should be very small in size so that we can isolate the vector easily. Thirdly, it should be non-injurious to the host cell. I mean, it should not cause any toxic injury to the host cell. Then next, that is very important, it should have the space for the insertion of the foreign genes. Next, it should have a very unique restriction sites so that it can be utilized by the common restriction enzymes. These are the several ideal characteristics of a vector, but still we have some more characteristics for a vector to become an ideal vector. Like it should have the markers. Because of the markers, like it may have the antibiotic resistance genes, so it will be very easy for us to screen out the recombinant organisms. Now, it should have a relaxed mode of replication. That means it should be able to produce the multiple copies of itself inside the host cell, and it should have very specific promoters which will control the expression of the introduced genes in transfected cells or transgenic animals. Naturally, from all these list of characters, you will be amazed that is it possible to have a vector with all these characters? No, definitely some characters may be present and some characters may not be present. Nowadays, we are having the modern vectors. These modern vectors are such that they are having many more advantages. Like they have the multifunctional elements which are designed to permit a combination of cloning, DNA sequencing, in vitro mutagenesis, transcription and episomal replication. Apart from this, the modern vector also have some additional characters, like they may have the additional eukaryotic origin of replication, which will allow the autonomous episomal replication in eukaryotic cell. Even they have the multiple unique cloning sites, which are often included for their versatility and easier library construction. Now we have seen that it is possible for us to have the vectors with the desired characters. Now we come to the topic, what are the different types of vectors which can be utilized in recombinant DNA technology. If we see, the simplest one is a plasmid, bacteriophage, cosmid, BAC, that is bacterial artificial chromosome, YAC, that means the yeast artificial chromosome, yeast 2 micron plasmid, some viruses like retroviruses, baculoviruses and TI plasmid. These are the several examples of vectors. We will talk about that what out of a list of these vectors, which vector should be utilized. So it depends on the nature of the experiment, and it also depends upon the host cell which is going to accommodate that recombinant DNA. I mean, the host cell may be a prokaryotic cell or it may be a eukaryotic cell. So choice of vector will depend upon these two factors, that is, one, the type of experiment, second, the type of host cell. If we talk about the first vector, that is about the plasmid vector, we should know what is a plasmid. As you all may be knowing that plasmid is nothing but it is an extra chromosomal circular double-stranded DNA, and it is a stably inherited from one bacterium or from one organism to the another. Secondly, it is found to be resistant to antibiotics, to heavy metals and even to DNA modifying enzymes. Its replication occurs simultaneously along with the chromosomal replication. Plasmids can be the relaxed plasmids. What does it mean? It means that they can have a more number of copies, maybe 10 to 200 copies per cell, and they uses the replication machinery of the host cell. Whereas the another type of plasmid is called as the stringent plasmid. Stringent plasmid, just they have few number of copies, like 1 or 2 copies per cell, but they utilize their own replication machinery. This is the difference between the stringent plasmid and relaxed plasmid. The number of copies of plasmid can also be increased up to 1000 to 2000 per cell. But this can be done by using some antibiotic like chloramphenicol, which will inhibit the chromosomal replication but not replication of a plasmid like COL-E1. Next plasmid is named as PBr322. This is one of the very original plasmid used. This plasmid is very specific in the sense because it is having two markers for antibiotics like ampicillin and tetracycline. It has the resistance genes for ampicillin and tetracycline. Secondly, it has got a very unique restriction sites, and these sites are scattered throughout the plasmid, which may lie in the antibiotic resistant genes. That means the screening of inserts will be very much easy because of these markers. COL-E1 ORI. ORI is nothing but it is a replication origin. It will regulate the number of copies which are to be produced. That means it may range from 15 to 200. It contains the cloning sites for insertional inactivation. And very interestingly, PBr322 was constructed by scientists Bolivar and Rodriguez, and that's why it is named as PBR. P stands for plasmid, B for Bolivar and R for Rodriguez. This is a diagrammatic presentation of genetic map of PBr322. as I have told you in the earlier discussion, that it is having the antibiotic resistant genes, and two antibiotic resistant genes are present. One is ampicillin, shown by the purple color, and second is a tetracycline resistant gene, shown by a green color. Even you can see the origin of replication and some other genes in this plasmid. So this is a diagrammatic presentation of cloning or a genetic map of PBR322. Next we see PUC18. PUC18 basically it is derived from PBR322. Why PUC18? Or why do we want to talk about PUC18? Because it has got some advantages over PBR322. What are these advantages? One, that it can accommodate a larger DNA fragment during the cloning, that is 5 to 10 kilo base pairs. Secondly, it is producing a very high number of copies per cell, that is 500 per cell. The number of copies are very high as compared to PBR322. And thirdly, it has got the multiple cloning sites which are clustered in the same location, and it is called as polylinker. So these are the advantages which we are getting in with PUC18, which are not present with PBR322. So this is how by modification we can have better and better vectors. Rakesh sir will discuss something more about these vectors in detail.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, as we have seen earlier, that vectors are the molecules which are responsible for taking the gene of interest from one cell into the host cell. One thing which is very much essential for you to understand is that these are the DNA molecules, because it is only the DNA of the target organism, that is the gene in which we are interested, that is to be taken, that is to be ligated, and then it is to be inserted into the host cells. So all vectors which we are going to discuss in brief in further discussions, they are basically a DNA molecules. Plasmid is nothing else but it is a DNA molecule. Similarly, in the initial stages, that is in the era of beginning of genetic engineering research work in the 1980s or so, scientists used to search for the plasmids with certain desirable characteristics, as madam have explained to you in detail. Now it is not possible to find all desirable characteristics of a vector in one particular plasmids which are naturally occurring, and therefore because of these limitations, scientists started playing with these plasmids and started cutting the plasmids from one cell and ligating it or joining it with the plasmids of the other cells. As a result of this, a new plasmid or a hybrid plasmid, I would not call it as exactly a hybrid, but we use the term derived plasmid because it is nothing else but it is derived from two different cells together. So these plasmids which have been derived from two different cells will possess the important features, the desirable characteristics of two different plasmids which are actually existing in two different cells. PBR322 was one of the earliest one which was discovered in 1980s after a lot of work done by Bolivar and Rodriguez. Basically, these plasmids were derived from certain R plasmids of E. coli and col-even plasmids of E. coli. Later on, this PBR322 plasmid was further, that is the PBR322 was already a derived plasmid, but further work was done on it, and that led to the synthesis of many more different plasmids. One of them was PUC 18 and 19. Now, what was the need of this PUC 18 and 19? The need was very Clear? In the sense that PBR 322 was not able to accommodate the large piece of DNA from the host cells. That is the gene in which we were interested. If that gene was a small one, like for example a gene of insulin, which is very small gene, fine, it would be possible to use PBR 322. But if the gene size, number of base pairs are too large, then PBR 322 was helpless because it could not carry that large load along with it, and therefore there was basically a need to find a plasmid which could carry a gene of a larger size, and that is where this PUC 18 came into existence. It is basically a derivative of PBR 322, and as you can observe in the slide, it has got a capacity to accommodate a DNA fragments as large as 5 to 10 kbps. Apart from that, it has got lots of other advantages. That is, apart from antibiotic resistant genes, this PUC 18 also has one interruptible gene coding for the enzyme beta galactosidase, that is the LEC-Z gene. Now, why this is important? Because this beta galactosidase LEC gene, we call it as an interruptible gene. That is, when this DNA of our interest is inserted in between this gene, that is the gene of LEC-Z, we call it as a polylinker which resides in the middle of LEC-Z gene, then the enzyme activity, that is the beta galactosidase, is stopped. Synthesis will be interrupted, and that is why it is known as an interruptible gene. It becomes non-functional, and therefore this disrupted gene will not be able to synthesize beta galactosidase. As a consequence, it will not be able to utilize the lactose sugar from the medium. Now, what is the significance of this? The significance basically is that since it is not able to utilize lactose and not able to produce acid, this presence of this interruptible gene in PUC 18 helps in identifying the recombinant cell, because it is not enough that we insert a target gene into the plasmid and that vector is sent into the host cell. One has to identify, one has to recognize that which cell possesses that particular gene of interest. And among lakhs of organisms, unless and until it has got some marker, and here the marker is LEC-Z gene, beta galactosidase enzyme synthesizing gene, and since it is interrupted, it will not produce beta galactosidase. Otherwise, all other cells which are wild type, in which the LEC-Z gene is not interrupted, produces the enzyme beta galactosidase. As a result, it can use the sugar lactose, produce acid, and due to the presence of chromogenic dye, the cells can easily be differentiated. Which cells are not producing lactose, that is, we call them as a lactose non-fermenter, and which cells are producing acids from the lactose, that is lactose fermenter. Now, which cell in which we are interested? We are basically interested in the cell which is not producing beta galactosidase, that is lactose non-fermenter. Why? Because that cell does not produces beta galactosidase. Why it does not produce beta galactosidase? Because that gene has been interrupted. What has made that gene to be interrupted? It is the foreign insert which we have attached to this plasmid. Therefore, PUC1819 plasmids which were developed from PBR322. PBR322 only possess 2 antibiotic resistant genes as a marker. This PUC1819, it also possesses an additional marker, and that marker is basically X-gel chromogenic substances which can be identified because it produces blue colonies, while the disrupted cells, that is the disrupted genes, will produce white colonies. Apart from this, it also contains the existing genes like ampicillin resistant genes with it. This is the diagrammatic representation of PUC19. PUC19, basically it's a plasmid, it is a synthetic plasmid as we have already discussed, which has been derived from PBR322. It has got a molecular weight, or rather we talk it in terms of base pairs. It has got about 2686 base pairs, and as it is shown by the arrows, black arrows in the figure, 3 important sites are ampicillin resistant genes, site of origin, and LEC-ZA polylinker. So this is about another plasmid, we call it as a PUC19. Now let us shift from plasmids to the bacteriophage. Bacteriophage, as you all know, is a virus which infects the bacteria. A phage in Greek means to eat, and it eats what? It eats the bacteria, and that is why the term, that is why the name bacteriophage is given to it. Now bacteriophages are basically of 2 kinds. One is virulent phage and the other one is lysogenic phage. Virulent phage, as you all know, you have studied in your earliest classes, is the one which is able to infect the cells, send the DNA into the cells, where the DNA will take the control of the host cell, will multiply its various components, that is RNA, DNA, protein coats and everything, tail fibers and other things, and finally the assembly will take place, leading to the lysis. The another bacteriophage which we are talking is a lysogenic one. What is the important feature of this lysogenic phage is that it does not, or it may not, I would say, always leads to a lytic cycle. That is, a bacteria may not always lyse. Why it is like this? Because the phage nucleic acid, rather than taking the control of the host cell and producing its own components, it makes a friendship with the host cells and integrates with the host chromosome, that is the host DNA, bacterial DNA. This condition is known as a prophage stage. Now, as long as the phage nucleic acid is in a prophage state, that is, it is in an integrated state with the host DNA, it will not damage the cell. The cell will multiply as usual, considering the phage DNA as its own, and will multiply. As a result, the progeny cells, progeny bacteria, that is the daughter cells, will all possess a copies of phage genome. Now, at times, the process which we call it as an induction takes place. As a result, this attachment comes to an end and the phage nucleic acid is detached from the host DNA it realizes that the work is to lyse the cell, and therefore it will start expressing its own genes, manufacture its own components, and finally lyse the cell. So this is basically what we call it as a lysogeny. And the phages which carry out these lysogenic or a prophage conditions are the one in which we are interested, because they are very good vectors. One of the most thoroughly studied phage, lysogenic phage, is a lambda bacteriophage. Now, as we see in the slide, the lambda bacteriophage is the one whose host is E. coli. It's a double-stranded linear DNA which is very suitable for construction of gene library. It can accommodate, one of the very important advantages that it can accommodate large segments of foreign DNA. That is, the central 1/3 portion, which is called as a stuffer fragment, it can be substituted with any foreign DNA of almost similar size without affecting the capabilities of lambda bacteriophage. It can still carry out a packaging itself, that is, the assembly can still be carried out and infect the other E. coli. That is, it can accommodate how much? 15 kilobase pairs of foreign DNA. This foreign DNA is ligated to left and right arms of the lambda, because there are particular portions in the lambda. If we go into the replication of the lambda bacteriophage, then you will realize that lambda bacteriophage multiplies, the DNA of the lambda bacteriophage multiplies by a process which we have already studied, that is called as a rolling circle model. And during the process of packaging, when a large linear segment of this DNA is formed, during the process of packaging, it recognizes only the cos sites. These are the two sites at the two ends of the linear lambda bacteriophage genome. So it cuts at a cos site. Again, when the next cos site comes, it will cut there. As a result, the segment of the DNA which is multiplied, which is replicated, will always be of the same size, and that DNA packages itself into the head of the phage, that is the capsid. Now, whatever is in between the cos site is not of any interest to the capsid. If you stuff it with the foreign DNA, then also the capsid recognizes that it is its own DNA and will pick it up and will take it into its capsid, that is into the head. So, if we are able to insert a large segment into that region, that is the stuffer region, which is in between the cos site, then the cell, that is the phage head, is able to pick up those DNA concatamers, and as a result will assemble into it. Now this assembly, when the cell will lyse, this bacteriophage will successfully come out from it and will infect the other bacteria, where again it will carry out the lysogeny. As a result, what happens? The foreign DNA, that is the gene of interest, has finally reached to the other cells where it will be expressed, because it will carry out a lysogeny, that it will carry out a prophage conditions. As a result, the phage DNA inserts into the host DNA. So this is how the lambda bacteriophage is widely used for cloning purposes. This is the genetic map of lambda genome, in which there are various sites which have been shown. Now, coming to the next vector is a cosmid vector. What is basically a cosmid vector? Cosmid is a word, again the word itself is a hybrid which is derived from plasmids having cos sites. I already discussed with you earlier what are cos sites. Basically the cos sites were nothing else but the two sites present at the terminal ends of the lambda genome. That is what we call it as a cos sites. And these cos sites, understand that these are the sticky sites. As a result, when the lambda bacteriophage infects the host cell, it immediately circularizes. So these cos sites are attached to the plasmids. So these vectors are known as cosmid vectors. These are the hybrid molecules which contains the components from lambda as well as the plasmid DNA. And the lambda component, that is the cos sequences, they help in packing the plasmid components. That is, plasmid DNA components will include sites of origin as well as antibiotic resistant genes. So basically cosmids are the plasmids having nothing else but a cos sites. Otherwise all other features of plasmids are maintained. Cloning sites are the part of vectors, and when the rDNA is packed using the extracts of coat and tail proteins derived from the normal bacteria components, but it cannot be packaged after introduction into the host cell because the rDNA does not encode the gene required for the coat proteins. Here, because we are using plasmids, not the phage genome, the large components of the target gene, that is the large size of target gene, can be taken as large as 35 to 45 kilobase pairs. And then finally, after infection of an E. coli, the rDNA molecules will replicate as plasmids. This is the site or the genetic map of what we call it is a cosmid. It has got an antibiotic gene which is represented as a R. It has got various sites for restriction endonucleases. It has got a cos sites, and it's having a origin of replication too. Now let us understand the word shuttle vectors. Shuttle vectors are nothing else but these are the vectors which may be derived again from other plasmid or from the phages genome, but they are the hybrid molecules which are having an ability to be used for different cell types. That is, the host can be more than one different type of cells. The reason is very simple, because they possess multiple site of DNA replications. That is the origin of replications, ORI. They are more than one. One belongs to prokaryote, that is the one ori site belongs to the prokaryote, and the other one belongs to the eukaryote. As a result, this vector can be expressed in both the cells, prokaryote as well as eukaryote. Example, say some plasmids can be used for or can be used as a vector in E. coli as well as the yeast cells, or E. coli and the human cells. They all possess some selectable markers as well as there are various restriction enzyme sites, that is the cloning sites. This is one of the diagrammatic representation where the red region is a origin of transfer, where the plasmids can be transferred by conjugation from one cell to another. Then there are one which is in a blue color, dark blue color, that is violet color, is the is the origin for bacterial selectable marker. Yellow one is the bacterial origin of replication, and the green one is the yeast origin of replication. If it is multiplying in a yeast, then it has got a yeast selectable marker. If it is multiplying in a bacteria, it will have a bacterial selectable markers. So these are the shuttle vectors. Now let us discuss certain things about another type of vectors. We call them as a bacterial artificial chromosomes. These are basically nothing else but the one which are based on the F factor of a bacteria. You know, F factors are involved in conjugations. It can accommodate up to 1 MB of DNA. That is a very huge size. So far we were talking about certain sizes which were expressed in terms of kilobase pairs. Here it is in 1000 kilobase pair, more than 1000 kilobase pair, that is 1 megabase pairs. Now the F factor components, that is for the replication and copy number, can be controlled. Apart from that, the other advantages are it has got a selectable markers and various cloning sites. What other useful features are there? It contains sp6 and T7 promoters. It is also responsible for direct RNA synthesis, RNA probes for hybridization experiments, and RNA for in vitro translation. So these are the various ways in which the bacterial artificial chromosomes can be used. Thus diagrammatic representation is showing the back vector. This back vector is first of all cut and at the top, and from where the large foreign DNA fragment is inserted. As a result, what we have got is a recombinant back, that is recombinant bacterial artificial chromosome, which is inserted into the cells at the bottom, and these cells are then plated, because to select which cell possesses the host chromosome, it is plated onto the plates, from where we get the resistant colonies or lambda markers, X-gel markers colonies. Similar to bacterial artificial chromosomes, we have yeast artificial chromosomes. They are the hybrid molecules which are derived from yeast. It contains the components of yeast, protozoa, as well as bacterial plasmids. From yeast, it has got a site of origin, autonomous replicating sequences, ARS. It also possesses suitable markers, and it also possesses yeast centromeres. What is there from a protozoa? Protozoa, that is Tetrahemera. From there, certain telomere sequences are being used, and from a bacterial plasmid, polylinker sequences can be used. It has got the capacity to accommodate a very large DNA of interest, that is up to 1 MB size. This is the diagrammatic representation of the vector, yeast artificial vector, which can be used both in yeast as well as bacteria. Now comes the human artificial chromosome. It is also used as a vector, which was developed in 1997. It is a synthetic self-replicating human artificial chromosome. It is having the size which is 1/10 of the normal chromosome, and it possesses micro chromosomes which passes to the cells during the mitosis. Apart from this, it also contains site of origin, that is a centromere or telomere. Then it has got a protective cap of repeating DNA sequence at the ends of chromosomes. Basically, this protects this particular human artificial chromosomes from shortening during the process of mitosis. And for this packaging of the human artificial chromosomes, the histones are basically provided by the host cells. Now comes the next plasmid, that is the Ti plasmid, belonging to Agrobacterium tumefaciens, and this plasmid is of a prime importance because it can be used for transferring the gene into plants. The organism is a Agrobacterium tumefaciens, which causes a tumor, that is a hyperplasia in plants. This takes place because of the hormonal imbalance which is caused by certain genes which are expressed when the Agrobacterium tumefaciens genome integrates with the host genome. Agrobacterium tumefaciens lives in the intracellular spaces of the plants, and this plasmid, TI plasmid, it is containing genes which are responsible for the diseases. Now, what is there in tDNA, that is the TI plasmid? It contains enzymes like auxins and enzymes for both auxins and cytokinin synthesis. These hormones are responsible for causing the imbalances. As a result, tumor formation will take place. Then it also contains opin synthesis genes. Example, octopin or neoplin. Carbon and nitrogen sources for Agrobacterium tumefaciens are basically derived from this opin synthesis genes. It also contains insertion genes, virulence genes, and what is important is it has the ability which allows the accession and integration into plant genome. This is the genomic map of TI plasmid of Agrobacterium tumefaciens. Now this TI plasmids, how it can be used for manipulation of the plants. As we have seen, or as we are observing in the diagram, Agrobacterium tumefaciens bacteria, the TI plasmid is isolated, and in this TI plasmid the gene of interest which may be of a other plant is inserted into TI plasmid. Then it is again sent back into the bacterial cell. Which bacterial cell? Same, Agrobacterium tumefaciens. And this Agrobacterium tumefaciens cell will enter through the wounds or the cuts into the plants, where it will integrate with the plant genome. As a result, the plant genome from one plant will be expressed into the another plants. So this is how the TI plasmid is able to carry along with it the gene of one plant to the gene to the other plants, and when it is expressed, it imparts certain characteristics of the foreign gene like disease resistance or weedicide resistance, etc. So this is how these vectors are able to carry the host target gene from one cell into the another cells. So friends, we have discussed about various kinds of vectors in depth. There are certain vectors for animal cells also. For example, retroviruses, because these retroviruses are able to infect the animals and integrate with them. Baculoviruses, these are the two viruses which are widely used for vectors, or they are widely used as a vectors for animals. Now, because of the time constraint, we are not going to discuss about these two viruses or the vectors which are used for animals, but basically the principle and the techniques remains the same. તો મિત્રો, તમને આજે ડિટેલની અંદર વેક્ટર્સનો શું રોલ છે રિકોમ્બિનેન્ટ ડીએનએ ટેકનોલોજીમાં એ આપને હવે ખ્યાલ આવ્યો હશે. તો આ સાથે આપણે આપણું ડિસ્કશન અહીંયા એન્ડ કરીએ છીએ, અને જો આપને કોઈ ક્વેશ્ચન્સ હોય, કોઈ ક્વેરીઝ હોય તો આપ પૂછી શકો છો. આ સાથે હું આ ઓપોર્ચ્યુનિટી લઈશ કે ખાસ બાયસેકનો અને ડિપાર્ટમેન્ટ ઓફ હાયર એજ્યુકેશનનો, કમિશનર ડિપાર્ટમેન્ટ ઓફ હાયર એજ્યુકેશનનો આભાર વ્યક્ત કરીશ, because they have been the one which are responsible for starting such a unique lecture series, Sandhan, through which we are able to reach to the students. I would also like to thank the staff of BISEC Studio who have taken a keen interest and presented this discussion to you in an excellent fashion. On behalf of Kiran Ben and on my half, I would like to say thanks to all of you. Thank you very much.